Thanks a lot, Bob. All right, so what I'm going to do today is kind of go over the workflow for print and cut using Flexi along with the HP printer and the HP Suma cutter. I'm going to go through just the basics of that today, and then tomorrow we actually are going to be doing another one of these where we're going to maybe do a deeper dive into some of the other features and some of the things that Flexi can do. So put some of those, if there are questions that I'm not going to be able to get to today, it may be things that I'll cover tomorrow. So we'll cover as much as we can today and kind of get through this, and let's see what we can do. So first off, what I want to do is kind of go over a little bit about the Flexi and what you can do with the software. So for doing print and cut graphics, you can bring in vectored images, you can bring in text, you can bring in things, you know, like you can just type in some basic text like this right here. And again, a lot of you probably know Flexi for vinyl cutting, and you can just send this directly to a vinyl cutter to cut vinyl graphics. But the other thing you can do with our software is you can actually put a contour cut line around the outside of the letters. And when you do something like that, that tells the printer and the cutter that you want to cut not the text, but the gray contour cut line that we see on there. So we would apply that, and then that can be set to do a print and cut graphic. So anything that you are going to be printing and cutting, you have to apply a contour cut line so that when the printer prints it, then the cutter will know how to contour cut it, and it can read some barcodes or registration marks that I'm going to show you how they get applied here shortly. So something like this is pretty easy, but what happens when you have something more along the lines? Let's bring a graphic in here, and I'm going to bring in something like a graphic like this right here. Now, this graphic right here, if I go to put a contour cut line around it right now, effects, contour cut, it's just going to cut the rectangle, the square. And that's because this graphic actually has a white background to it. So what we want to do is we need to be able to get rid of this background right here and then apply a contour cut so it just cuts the people in the diagram out. So one of the things that we have here that we can do, Flexi makes it very easy to be able to do this kind of thing. You can come in here to our bitmap, and then actually you need to select your bitmap first. And that's one of the things Flexi kind of helps you. If you are trying to do something that you haven't selected yet, it will be grayed out. So my make transparent was grayed out a second ago. Now it's on here, so I can click make transparent, and then I'm just going to click the white area in the background right here. And then with one click of my mouse, that background is now gone. So now when I apply the contour cut, like I did a few minutes ago, effects, contour cut. So now it's going to put a contour cut just right around the family themselves here. Now, the other things you can do with this contour cut is in Flexi, I can actually take this, make this contour cut bigger, smaller, all these kind of things. Trying to do something like that in Illustrator, once you apply that contour cut, you actually have to stop, undo everything, and then redo it again. So Flexi makes it very easy to apply a contour cut. You can even do a negative contour cut. So if you want to make sure you get a full bleed, you can see what I've done right here when I do that. Effects, contour cut. You can see it's going inside there. So you can actually make a full bleed. Lot of options with what you can do with our software. Makes it very easy. So now one thing also that we've got, so I'm using my drop-down menus right here. I'm going to effects and then contour cut. But I'll show you a little shortcut here too that we've got. If you come up to the toolbar up here and right-click a blank area, we can open up our effects tool menu. And then you can actually take this up here and park it kind of wherever you want. All these things, all these toolbars can be moved, parked, and put wherever you'd like to have them. So with that selected there, I've got a little button here, contour cut. I click that, and instantly it puts a contour cut on there. So, but I'm not quite ready to do this yet. I want to do something with some text on here. So I guess let's make it relevant for what's going on today. And then we'll put a block of text there, and then I'll come down here and I'll type something else in there. All right, so now I've got text in here. So the thing you can do with Flexi allows you to be able to work with text really well. One of the things you can do, I can actually take this right here. As you see, you can move it around. I can grab it, resize it here a little bit, and then do something like that. And then let's say we want to kind of move it. So right now it's kind of blocking his head and it's in front of him. Let's move it behind him. Okay, so I can click on this. I can click my right mouse button, and then I can come back here to order and tell it move it to the back. So it moves it now behind him a little bit. So you can kind of see how it's done that right there. And then, so we've got this text right here. Now, a lot like in Microsoft Word, I can actually have text tools where I can actually just center all this text together to make it look something like that very easily. If I want to change the font on this text, I come back here to my Design Central, which is really a really key part of our program. If you'll notice, Design Central changes based on what I have selected. So when I select my text tool, it becomes my font options. If I have my background selected, I can actually change the color of my background to something different. So you have a lot of different options, and it really just makes it much easier for you to be able to do different things with it. Now, the background here really isn't there. If I printed this, it's not going to print yellow. It's still going to print a white background. I'm just using this basically as a background filter. So, and then when you click on the picture itself, it actually becomes part of the bitmap, shows you the color settings and different things like that. So let's come right here, maybe make this text a little bit bigger. Let's do something like this here. You actually can even come in here and change the spacing in between the lines with Flexi very easily. So I can move all these things together to get them right where I want them to be. And if I want to change the spacing in between the text, all that works really easily right there. So we've got something like this here. Now, I notice right in here, this kind of disappears. So tell you what we'll do, we'll just put a little bit of a white outline right around the outside of all this. So again, I just come up here to my outline tool. It's a white outline, and let's apply this and see if that looks. So yeah, that put that together. So now you can read the text in there. So now that we've got all this here, what I want to do at this point is apply a contour cut to it. So let's get our background back to white since we know what we've done here. All right, so I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to click on my contour cut button. Now you'll notice what it's done is it has put a contour cut around the text as well as the graphic all together. And any place that it can connect that text or connect the contour cut line based on how far apart I have it, it does that. So let's kind of zoom in here and take a look at this. So we've done this here. Now, something else I've also done, I have checked the with holes button on here. So when the with holes button is checked, in the inside of the 9, any little spaces here, space here, those will cut. So if I don't want those to cut, and I want this to cut as one solid sticker, very quickly, I can change that. And now it's only cutting around the outside of the whole graphic, as you can see right there. Everywhere there's inside parts, it's not gonna try to cut a hole out of that. So that gives you a lot of options. If we were gonna make the, where you'd wanna use the with holes is if you're gonna do this and make this like a 0.05 offset, then as you see, it makes a lot more sense to have the with holes because the inside of the 19, the D, all those kind of things, right inside here. So you've got a lot of a lot of spots that it will actually cut those out. So it just depends on the type of sticker you're trying to do. So for right now, we're going to do this without holes, just to kind of, and then let's make this let's put this back bigger here where they're kind of combining to each other. Let's get that to touch. All right, so there we go. So we've got our sticker here. So what we've done now is we've made the background. Now that's something else that I always do this, and you actually have to make sure that you apply the effect in order for it to stay. So I clicked off of it without applying the effect. So let's go back in here to my contour cut, and then you have to click the check mark to apply the effect. All right, so now I've got all this here, and I've decided, all right, well, I really don't want this, we're all in here, all in this together. I don't want it right here, or I want to move the end down here to this next line. I've decided I want to change the way this looks a little bit. Well, in a program like Corel or Illustrator, you're basically going to have to undo all this, change the text, and redo it again. Well, in Flexi, we make it easy. So all you have to do is come in here. I can click in front of my end. I can hit enter to return. Let's come over here, pull this back up, put a little space in there. If you notice, it's changing my contour cut. It changed the outline. It changed everything that I needed. All the effects that I'd already applied to it. It keeps all those together and it remembers what you've done. So it's really a great program in the way it works with this. Another thing I can actually do, let's say I want to move this COVID-19. I don't want it really behind his head. I want it up a little bit higher. So something we have is something called select within. So this is all grouped, and when you select a part of it right now, it would all select everything. But when you go to select within, I can actually click on this text right here and move something by itself, and then it's going to redo my contour cut based on how I've moved it. So I selected the graphic right there. Now notice the other thing that it did was I moved the graphic, so it moved it on top of the text and everything. So let's come right here. Let's go to select within. Let me click on my text here. Whoops, I'm still getting the graphic. So let me get that, and I can pull this down here, and you'll notice it changes that contour cut. Same thing over here. Select within. Let's grab this, pull this back down here. So a lot of interesting things that you can do with the program, and it makes it very easy so you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the way from the beginning whenever you're doing something like this. So let's pull this back up. Oops, I got my text there. So let's where we can kind of look at it here. All right, so we've got our graphic there now like that. And this is kind of, as you see, I'm not a great graphic designer, which is why I sell software and don't actually run the software. So anyway, what we're going to do here, I know the printer that we're going to be using is probably a 54-inch wide roll of media on the printer. So what I'm going to do, this blank right here, like I said, is just really a point of reference. So right now it's 36 inches wide. I'm going to make this 50 inches wide right now, just so I know that my graphic's going to fit on my media. And then I'm going to make this, I'm going to take this down and make it about 6.5 inches. So we can get a couple of stickers on here. So to do multiple stickers on a program like this, you're actually going to select that right there, arrange, and then I'm going to go to something called step and repeat right here. Now with step and repeat, it's going to, you can actually tell it how many rows. You can come down here and you can tell it what spacing you want in between the rows. Like I've got a 1/2 inch. If I want more spacing in between the copies this way, or maybe I want them a little bit tighter. All that kind of stuff can be done right here. And once you have it laid out where you like it, you hit your enter button and you need to confirm it, and then there it goes. Now, one thing I didn't do here that I want to do, and so we're going to undo this and come back. So with a plotter like the Suma, you have the ability to do a kiss cut and what is called a perf cut, okay? So your perf cut is going to be the kiss cut will cut the sticker out, but let's say you wanted to cut a square around the sticker so that you can just punch these out when you're done, and then you've got a stack of pre-cut stickers all ready to go. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to select my graphic, and then I'm going to hit my contour cut button again. And if you'll notice what it's doing here, it is putting an extra contour cut line around the outside. Well, I don't want it to do another contour. What I want it to do this time, and you can actually come in here very quickly and change it to rectangle, and it's going to cut a contour cut rectangle right around the outside of it. The other thing we can also then do is come in here and tell it and define it. We want to make sure that it knows it's a different color. So we're going to make this outside color a perf cut contour. So click right there, we're all ready to go. So now when we do this, we are going to have a kiss cut and then a perf cut with two different contour cut lines. So the next thing we're going to do, let's go back and let's do our step and repeat again. So we'll see our whole graphic here. So arrange, and again, arrange, step and repeat, and we are ready to go. So it takes a second to create all those copies there. So let's kind of move this over so I'm inside my little window here. Now I know this is still going to fit on my printer, even though it's showing narrow on my space here. The printer has 54-inch media, so I've made this smaller just so I knew for a fact it would fit on my material as you print it. So what we can do here now that you have this done, you are able to send this to the rip and print screen. So what we're going to be doing here, and there are a couple of ways that we can do this. We actually can apply the barcode directly to the file here itself, or you can also then let Flexi apply the barcode to it for you. So if you were going to be cutting out of, say, something like maybe a Graphtec, or you're printing to a different kind of printer, or where you're doing a print cut with something else, I might come in here. You can actually come in here to Effects, Contour Cut, and then if you'll notice, it is applying the barcode for me right here on my file. So this is what the plotter will read to see what it needs to cut, and then know what the registration marks are. And it puts the barcode on the top or the bottom. So no matter how, let's say I'm doing a whole roll of these materials and all these stickers are reverse wound at the end of the roll, I can then come back in, put the barcode in this way, it'll read the barcode and know which way to cut this graphic. So for today though, I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you how this is one way to do it. So we can save this as part of the file, and then we can then print this directly as by itself without having to worry about a cutter or anything else. But I'm going to take this off today, so we're going to let our production manager do this for us. So when we're right here, we select this, and then I'm going to hit my rip and print cue right here. And we'll just say okay. And then we're going to turn this so it's flat here. So as you see, it's got my material. Now, the one thing I usually do when I'm doing something like this is I'll put it over here into the middle so that it's centered side to side. Now, I noticed that I have the wrong registration marks on here. You notice they don't look like what I had there just a second ago. So what we have to do is we'll come in here, and I need to go ahead and add my HP cutter to my setup. So you can add a setup very easily in Flexi. So we're going to come in here like this. We're going to cutters. We're going to type in HP, enter, and then we'll pick the 64-inch latex cutter. I don't have a TCP IP address, so I'm just going to pick like a generic USB port. Normally you type the IP address in of that plotter. So now that we have, as you see, you can have multiple printers. You can have a latex printer, you can have a You can have a dye printer, a pigment jet printer. You can have Mamakis, Rolands, HPs, all those kind of things all loaded in here at one time and run them. You can run up to 5 printers simultaneously at the same time. So now what we can do is come in here. Let's go here and let's pick our latex printer. So now, if you'll notice, the barcode now changed. So the barcode makes it very user-friendly, so you can see the barcode that I had previously has now been added automatically by our production manager, and it shows the HP barcode right here. So now one thing that I do have, I notice I've only got 1 cut line, but we put 2 cut lines on here. So apparently what I did was I kept them both the same color. So I will need to change the one color, and I'm not going to do that right now, but so what you've got to make sure that you do is make sure that this one is definitely separate from the other color. So I can come in here, click that one, and tell it to make it that contour cut color. So then when I come in here, and we'll be able to see that I have, well, I'm gonna have to go in and redo that contour cut. Let's see here. I'll do that. And so we're gonna clear that contour cut.
This is good. I'm sure this always, I mean, this certainly happens to me occasionally. So I'm sure people are always curious about this.
So you can definitely find, you know, when you do certain things like this. So, but what I've got is, and really the easiest way to do it is just basically to take this and do it again. So we're going to come in here, we're going to tell it to do a contour cut right there. And so we'll select all that. Contour cut around everything. And then make sure, this is where you can screw yourself up, is make sure when you're doing multiple demonstrations on this, you'll leave things the way they weren't supposed to be. So you check that. We'll come in here and we'll add another contour cut, and I'll tell it to make this one then the rectangle. So this one now, I got to tell it to be the Perf cut contour color. So now, hopefully, we'll get rid of all the rest of these here. So I've got my zoom tool. I can zoom out right here. So, so now when we're going to do this, let's see if it'll work this time. Hey, I've got 2 colors. Now you always want to make sure that the second color, it cuts in order that they are on this screen. So you want to make sure that the kiss cut is first and then the perf cut is second. So that really is, you know, I made it more difficult than it was. So when you do it right the first time, it makes it a lot easier. But then you can just send this, and what it will do then is it will send the print job to the printer and the cut job to the cutter. So you've got the printer there, and then we've got the cutter there. So we're going to hit send. And then when you pull up your production manager, you will then be able to see that you go to the printer and there's a print job. So, and what it does is the print job can sit here, it will hold right here. Once you release it, then it starts to print. And then when you come over here to your latex cutter, there's your cut job. So it makes it very simple. So what I'm going to do now, though, this is the software side of it. So what we're going to do now is turn it over to the guys from HP, and I think they're going to then show you actually how this works on the print side, where you actually can see what it's doing and how it will work and what you're going to be doing with that. Bob, are the HP guys ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we this is Paul Wagner speaking. I'm a solutions architect with HP, and I would like to thank you, Bobby, for showing off the software. And I think what we're going to do next is we're sort of working on the fly here. One of my colleagues has encountered a problem, and so what I'd like to do is I can't really show off the equipment for the basic reason that I don't have it in my house, and one of my colleagues does, but unfortunately he was unable to make this call. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a step back and talk about the print and cut solution from HP in terms of its totality, about what the component pieces look like. So what I'd like to do, if I could, is share my screen here. So Bob, do you need to change a release so I can do that?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. So let me know if you can, when you can see my screen, if you would, that would be great.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good deal. All right, so what I think I'll do is I'll go ahead and just pull up, let's see, HP Latex Print and Cut, so bundle solutions. So for those of you who are not familiar with the solutions, latex as a technology has existed now for about 10 years, and what we're on now at this point in that 10-year time frame is what we refer to internally as Gen 3 latex, and this is a core HP technology. It's gone through a series of iterations, and about 3 years ago now, we actually extended the product into print and cut bundles. And the reason we did that was because one of the things that we found was that when it comes to print and cut, there's lots of ways to skin that cat. And I'm sure Bobby would agree. I'm sure Bob would agree. There's lots of workflows and there's lots of ways to set up files. So you might use Illustrator, you might use Flexi. I've seen people use Inkscape. I've seen people try to use just straight Photoshop. And then the next thing is, depending on the hardware involved, there can be plugins to those applications as well. So a lot of the manufacturers like Summa, Graphtec, and some others, they also put, typically they'll make available plugins to those products, but the way you build the file is tied to the workflow that you're doing. So there's lots of questions, and as I said earlier, there's lots of ways to skin that cat. That also creates lots of challenge, though, for new users. And so what we wanted was we really wanted to deliver a very simple, a very robust, and a very flexible solution that a new user could be trained on very, very quickly. And so what we did was we took our HP technology, which was the latex printer itself. We went out and partnered with a company called Summa, and we are essentially OEMing the Summa D series cutter. All right, which is now it's not branded Summa and it has an HP brand on it, but it is in fact pretty much, with just a couple of changes, a Summa D series cutter, right? And then we also went to SAI and partnered to have a custom version of FlexiSign created as well, that at the time was very unique. I think it's not quite as unique at this point, but it also had a barcode server built into that to support the barcode scanning capability of the Summa cutter. And so what we ended up with was a very simple solution that somebody could do print and cut graphics with in a very very short time frame, and yet it was very flexible. So what we like to say about the HP solution, it is the most comprehensive solution in the market. And what I mean by comprehensive is it's really the only solution that includes the design capability, along with the print capability, along with the RIP software, and then the cutting solution itself. So everything except for the media is essentially in the box with our solution. And when you look at competitive solutions from other manufacturers in the industry, that's not really the case. Typically what's missing would be the design component. So if you buy a solution from, let's say, Roland, terrific solution, but there's no design capability built into that. So you have to go out and decide, do I want to use CorelDRAW? Do I want to use Illustrator? And then is the reseller going to train me on those products and the plugins necessary to drive that, right? So what we have is really a much more comprehensive solution. So let me go ahead and just minimize a little bit so we can see the entirety of the screen here. Put this over here. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and set up some jobs and show you some of the really unique attributes of this solution that, quite honestly, some of the competitive products don't have. And we'll also set up jobs for production and run those all the way through. The one thing I can't do is I can't show you the printer printing. The printer printing. I can't show you the cutter cutting because, again, I don't physically have them in my house, right? So let's go ahead and change the view here. Let me go ahead to a cascade view. All right, and where I think I'd like to start is talking about some tools that are fairly unique in Flexi. Okay, and if they're by unique, what I mean is there wouldn't be something equivalent in other packages from, let's say, whether that's Roland or Ramaki or in fact many other dual device solutions as well. So the first thing I'd like to do, and Bobby had done this previously, I've set up a document page 50 inches wide. And it looks like it's about 40 inches tall. And down here in the bottom left corner, I have a vector graphic, which you might recognize as a road sign, a little decal, if you will. So typically, if I was to send this to the printer, in most cases, what I would get would be a certain, what I would call a matrix or almost like cells in a spreadsheet. So if we went to arrange, step and repeat, and I wanted to keep my jobs within the work area, I might begin to increase the number of copies horizontally. Excuse me, that's spacing. Let's go back and bring that back down. The number of copies horizontally out to the edge of my sheet, the number of copies vertically up to the top of my sheet. And roughly speaking, I could fit 72 copies in that available space without extending out beyond the gaps, right? Beyond the edge of the 50-inch by 40-inch frame, right? But the reality is, and this is the way almost everybody would work it, and I'm not to say that's wrong, but if there were a more efficient way to get those jobs produced, then that would actually give me a higher media yield, which would equate to less waste. So let's go back in here this time and look at a different way that the SAI software that comes with the print and cut bundle gives us the ability, right? So we're gonna go to the arrange menu. We're gonna go down here to true shape nesting. Okay, and then in Design Central up here in the corner, what I'm going to do is decide how many copies I want. And I'm just going to pick a number, let's just pick a number like 100. All right, I can control how much space between copies in this field right here. And I'd like to now preview, I'm going to allow this to do a true shape nest on the object. And this is going to now create that array in, based on the parameters that I've defined. So I'm asking for 100 copies of this. Notice, remember I had 72 in the entire array previously. Now I'm hitting 100 in a smaller space. And I could actually extend this out to a bigger number, maybe 115 or thereabouts. Let's see where that takes us. Okay, I might even get a few more. Let's just bring it out to 119. That might be it, right? So when I have this defined the way I want to, I'm going to hit my green check bar here in Design Central, and now I have this array. And so now my yield has gone up from 72 in that space up to 120. So when you look at that, that's a pretty significant increase in terms of the yield, right? So my costs don't go up, but my effective yield does go up. Now, could you have done this manually? I suppose, if you were really patient. But again, you got to keep in mind things like labor is not free as a rule either, right? So the time value or the money value of time in this case. So this is an example of a tool that our solution delivers that competitive solutions do not. All right. I'll go ahead and cancel out of there. This is another function that is fairly rare in the industry. So this is a question that I've gotten for many years. So before I joined HP, I was in the industry supporting franchise systems. And one of the things that happens with cutters all the time is that people say, why is it so inefficient when it's cutting? In other words, why is there so much what I would call pent-up time in between the actual cuts? And in most cases, the reality is because the order that the objects were built in or copied and pasted in, or however they came into being, is going to have a direct effect. So let's go ahead and we're going to preview something called, let's see, oops, I think I need, yeah, should be under cut order. And if I go to preview this, I'll go ahead and speed that up. So the blue lines is when the knife is actually cutting. The green lines is with the pen in the up position moving from object to object. So you can see in this case, there's lots and lots of green. And what that means is there's two problems with this approach. One is that there is the cutting time goes up exponentially. It might take 50% longer to cut. The second problem is it also might yield a less efficient cut, because in many cases, cutters, the longer distance they travel, the less accurate they get. So again, in Flexi, one of the things we can do, which is a terrific tool, is we can go in here and we can essentially reorder the objects. All right, so instead we'll go back to arrange. We're going to come back down here, go to cut order, and I'm going to reorder this object and just sort this by maximum speed. And you can see, okay, now I'm starting in the lower left, I'm going to proceed to the right and then move up to the next row and come back to my origin position. Now, if we go back and run that preview one more time, we're getting a much more efficient result, right? So my time is cut down significantly, my cut accuracy is increased significantly in just really a couple of clicks. And so these are real production tools. They really make a difference in a production environment. And again, we include them. Very few solutions out there include this type of functionality. This is true production tools, okay? All right. So moving on, this is, I think, maybe a restatement or a refresh of some of the stuff that Bobby had showed you, but I'd like to show you my version of the same thing, right? So what we have here is a little area. It's a 10-inch by 10-inch frame. I've got some text down here that had been entered, and I'm going to go ahead and now bring in, import in a raster image, okay? And we'll drop that into our job. Now again, this is a raster object, and so just as Bobby did, I'm going to go ahead and change my background color. We'll make that gray, and you can see those white pixels once again. Now this functionality works terrific when you have a uniform white background or a uniform background really of any color. It's a little bit more complicated when you have a complex background. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get rid of that background by going to effects and, the bitmap menu. We're going to make that background transparent and confirm that step. And now I can very easily come in here and add my contour cut either outside or inside. And the question would be, where do I want that cut to go? So we'll start off with it a 1/4 inch outside the original. And of course, this is gray on gray, which is probably not a great contrast. So let's go ahead and make that transparent again. So now you can see my cut geometry a 1/4 inch off the original. If I want to manipulate that, I can do so either on a visual level, bringing in tighter, and then again, confirm that step. I'm going to really zoom in now to show you. I could even bring it into negative space. So you notice when you get in tight here, because it's a raster image, you see the pixeled edge on the edge of the black here. If I really don't want to see that, maybe I want to actually go negative with this value. So we're going to bring it just inside, maybe a couple hundredths of an inch on the negative side, maybe around 2/100ths or so, or 1/100th of an inch. And now you can see where that cut would be just cutting off that sawtoothed edge. So as my decal would now have a nice clean edge, but still be a full bleed decal, right? Which, speaking of full bleed decals, that is something that is also very interesting and very unique to latex. So one of the things we talk about with latex being a very unique solution for the decal and sticker market pertains specifically to things like full bleed stickers, right? So I don't know if you guys have experience with this. I know I have with various brands of solvent machines, and I don't know of a single brand that this isn't true for. It's, at the end of the day, it's about chemistry. So the minute you put a solvent or an eco-solvent ink on vinyl, that the solvent in the ink is effectively chemically attacking the vinyl. It's a volatile combination between those two entities. What that does is it effectively takes that vinyl, attacks it chemically. It's essentially causing that vinyl to shrink a little bit. And when you have that cut, when that ink is anywhere near wet over a period of hours, that is going to cause an effect we call lifting or potato chipping or curling. It goes by different names. And the more ink you put down, if you want nice density, the more likelihood you're going to end up with solvent ink, you're going to end up with a lifted effect. And really what you typically see is when people complain about it, they say one of three things. They either say, oh, no problem, just wait 24 hours and the problem goes away. Or option number two, put a white edge on the object. Well, but either of those will work, right? But what if the customer doesn't want the white edge? Then really that takes that option away. So now you're left with waiting a very significant period of time to do the cut after the print, or to put a laminate down, which means, again, you're going to wait a minimum of 6 hours between the application of laminate. So the idea that any of those are really productive solutions is really not the case when you really drill into that, right? If you want full bleed decals, latex is by far the best solution, because I can take that graphic right off the printer, I can move that over to the cutter in as little amount of time as it takes me to physically make that transmission, and get a completely stable result, a full bleed sticker in a matter of minutes. I could get that order in at 9 in the morning, have that shipped by noon, or a customer picking it up by noon, with zero worry that this is going to be coming up off the back of the sheet. Okay. So those are some of the things that we really love about the latex technology, especially for sticker and decal production. Okay. One of the other things, and again, the cut that I had defined here, so when we look in this edge and I zoom in on this thing, this cut that we have here is what we would term a kiss cut, meaning we're cutting through the vinyl, we're not cutting through the backing paper. If I want to create a stackable result, though, so that's great if I want to deliver stickers on a okay, bye. Sorry, my wife just wanted to come and say hi. If I want to create stickers on a sheet, no problem, I've got that. If I want to turn around now and create a stack or deliver a stack of stickers, now I have some more work to do. Okay, so one of the things we might do is we might come in, we'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit so I can see my entire frame. I'm going to simply create a rectangle, and there's multiple ways to do this, but I'll go ahead and just build a rectangular object around the frame here. Let's see what we got going on with that. Looks like I've got, oh, I see what I did. I've probably got a an outline maybe going on here. Let's see. Unfortunately, I didn't. Let's go ahead and get rid of my fill. I'm not sure what that is. Let's try it one more time here. Yeah, so I've obviously got something going on here that I'm not looking for. But in any event, let me just go in here and see if we can convert this into a contour cut. We'll go ahead and, okay, that should be fine. So we'll go ahead and make that into a contour cut. So all I did was I started off with a basic rectangle. Okay, let's go ahead and do that one more time so you understand the steps. Right. I'm going to drag my rectangle in, and by the way, it could be any of these geometric shapes. It could be an oval, a circle, a star, polygons, arrows, etc. Okay, we'll go in here and just drag in our rectangular shape. Okay, and there's really nothing terribly special about this rectangle. It is literally just a rectangle, and right now it would be a printed object. If I want to turn it into a cuttable object, specifically a contour cut object, we're going to tell it to make a contour cut, and then once we have the contour cut defined, we're going to change the color to something called a perf cut, right? And to do that, all I need to do is drag down. We're going to choose perf cut contour. That's going to actually change the spot color of this object. So now this rectangle, essentially when the cutter sees that geometry and the rip processes that file, it's going to then essentially say, oh, that should be a perf cut, not a kiss cut, right? Which means it's going to be doing some different things with that. And I didn't have to turn it into an actual perforated rectangle. It still looks like a regular solid rectangle, but the rip and the cutter are going to treat that very differently. So let's go ahead and save this file. Okay, and there's a lot of ways to do this. I could actually bring this file right from here, right through the rip and print interface. That's one way to do that. And if I want to do that, it's absolutely doable. All I would do is come through rip and print and start to define my my materials. So I'd say, hey, this is a self-adhesive vinyl. I would then start to add my number of copies, and you'll notice as this creates the matrix, I can control the number of copies, I can control the space between copies, and especially when I'm doing things like perf cuts, I want significant space between them, at least a ½ inch, if not maybe a wee bit more than that, right? And the reason for that is because if two perf cuts where we're cutting largely through the substrate are close together, you're going to really destabilize that sheet. So that's one way to go ahead and get this job set up, and it will, as efficiently as it can based on the media width, it's going to lay those in so I can get as many into a small space as I can. So in this case, I've got 16. And I could hit send, and that job is now going to process. There is another way to do this, however, and I'll go ahead and show you option B, not to say one's better or worse, but we'll go ahead and go the other approach, and that is to save this file as a single copy. So we'll go ahead and save this as a native Flexi file. So I'll call it Rolling Stones sticker. I like to denote those with CC, which stands for contour cut, and PC, which stands for perf cut. Right? And I'll go ahead and throw this on my desktop just so I know where it's at, make it nice and easy to find. And by the way, this is saving it as a native FS file, all right? So with that saved, now we're gonna go ahead and bring that native file directly into the RIP. And we can do that through File and Add Job, or we can actually just drag it and drop it right into the production queue. And that will take a few seconds to process, regardless of which way I bring it in. Now, before we proceed here, you'll notice here in the bottom left-hand corner, this is my hold queue. This is the jobs that are sitting, waiting to be processed and output, right? Down here in the bottom right, I see some information about this job. And the first thing I'm looking for is this field right here, this area under type. I want to make sure that the RIP is identifying this as a print and cut job. If it just says print job, something is wrong with the file. Maybe I forgot to hit the green check. Maybe I screwed something else up. Believe me, I've screwed it up every way there is to screw things up in 25 years of working with this softwares, right? But that's the first place I want to look on any decal production job, is to make sure that job is in fact a print and cut job. And then once I see that, I go, okay, it's parsed correctly, it's being processed properly. Now I can go in here and start to set this job up. And I do that by double tapping the job or double clicking the job in the queue to bring open the job properties window. And I like to work sort of top to bottom here and left to right. And what that means is the first thing to be concerned with in the job properties window is, what is my media? So this is one of the other very cool things that we put into the HP solution. And these are cutting presets for pretty much, I shouldn't say all of the medias or all the classes of media, but a lot of them. So you'll notice we have one for unlaminated vinyls, right? We have one for your normal thinner laminates up to, let's say, 4 mils thick. We have another preset for thicker laminates, another one for things like heat transfer polyurethane and vinyls. Or we can let the cutter be in charge of the settings and say the software not tell it not to worry about that. So there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm going to choose self-adhesive vinyl, okay? And what that does is that sets some things like pressure parameters and force settings into ranges which are appropriate for unlaminated self-adhesive vinyl, okay? So that's the first thing. Then we're going to come down here in this area labeled copies and define how much space between copies. So same rules apply here. If I want to do perf cuts, I'm going to define a value of at least a ½ inch between them, and then add my number of copies here by tapping up, or if I know what the number is, I would just go ahead and punch in that number into the field. All right, so in this case, I've asked for 15, and I can see that's going to fit very nicely. When I zoom in on this, you'll notice, let me just zoom in on an area here. Okay, you notice at the lead edge, this is a barcode, and it's a barcode that extends with a bar that extends the entire width of the job. So it's actually quite unique. The barcode itself is on the right extent on the lead edge. There's another barcode on the trail edge. So if I zoom or I scroll over, scroll to the left and take a look at this back right, or excuse me, back left of the job, I see there's actually another barcode. Now this is very interesting. Why in the world would we put two barcodes on a job? The short answer is because if I have barcodes at the lead edge and the trail edge of the job, it doesn't make any difference which way the job gets loaded into the cutter, because the encoding information at the lead edge identifies it as the front, the data in the trailing barcode identifies it as the back. And that's actually really, really cool because I can't screw it up. So as an operator, one of the things I've learned in a trainer many, many years ago is the more chances you give people to screw things up, they're going to take you up on it X percentage of the time. The only question is, what is X for a given operator? Some operators, that's 50%, and that's not a great operator in all likelihood. Some people are much more fastidious, and their X value would be a lot lower, but people make mistakes. So essentially what we're doing here is we're reducing the touch points, we're reducing the opportunities for operators to screw this up. Okay. By the way, if I wanted more than 15 jobs, I could certainly add more. Okay. And it's really hard to see on the screen here without re-zooming back in, but the actual fiducial marks, the registration marks, are small. These are summa marks. That little square you see there in the corner just to the right of the barcode, that's a mark. And right now we've got these set up at every 15 inches running down the side. So as you go 15 inches in, we'll find another mark. Go another 15 inches in, we'll find another mark. And this is true all the way down the job. I'm trying to scroll this and see if I can find the last mark. There it is. And the same thing holds true on the other side of this job. So as we scroll here to the left, I'll find another set of marks, and should be a total of 6. There's one, and there's the last one. Okay, so I've got 6 marks on this job. That is predicated on the size, the overall surface area of this job. So one of the very cool things about this solution is we're not restricted to 4 marks the way a lot of competitive systems are. Typically they would have 1 in each corner, and in this case, we have really the maximum we could have, theoretically speaking, is 128 marks, 64 on each side. So if they're every 15 inches down the side, that would be a very, very large surface area job, extremely large. And yet we can expect accuracy because of the number of marks and the corrections, the dynamic corrections that take place along that axis. The other thing about those bars, excuse me, that are very interesting, and I'll zoom in on them again, this bar here has a very important role as well. That bar is going to be scanned as part of the mark identification sequence every 20 centimeters along its width. So in a case of a 50-inch wide bar, or whatever it is, that's going to be probably around 6 to 8 marks where it's going to be checked for straightness. If that bar is deformed for any reason, then a correction value will be applied to the output, to the cut, and that happens on the fly, actually in the cutter. So this is something that the Summa/HP cutter is doing that makes it actually more accurate, right? So as long as any deformation is consistent, we're going to get a consistent result over the area. So one of the things that we talk about is 1 millimeter of cut accuracy anywhere within 26 linear feet down the vertical axis and across the width of the material on 30-inch material, and it's about half that on 60-inch material. So 13 linear feet on 60-inch, 26 linear feet on 30-inch. So very, very accurate over very large surface areas. Okay, if I need more than 15, I have several ways to do that. One option is I might come over here to the next tab. I might tell it to repeat this job 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. And now I'm going to get this set of 15 again and again and again. And what that's going to do is give me marks every time, which allows for correction and deformation adjustments. So this is a very powerful thing. Finally, the last thing I want to show you under the cut tab is this is our parameters for the kiss cut and our through cut. So if I double tap here on the kiss cut, as long as the cutter, the software rather, is in control, this is where I control the type of cut, the force being used for the cut. In this case, 85 grams is the default value. That's normally pretty good for your calendared vinyls, whether they're monomeric or polymeric. If I go to the through cut, I have more parameters. So I have full pressure. Now what this means is this is now going to cut 240 grams in this case, which is going to put that knife all the way through the backing paper. It's going to drive for just under 4/10 of an inch, 0.394 inch. Then it's going to lift up to 125 grams, meaning it's not cutting through the paper anymore for a very short distance of 3/100 of an inch approximately. Then it's going to plunge back down, and that's giving me my perforated cut. So any of you folks old enough to remember what a check coming out of a checkbook looked like, that's kind of the idea here. It's got little perforations to hold the sheet intact while the cutting is being completed. Okay, and these can then just be literally punched out or popped out or whatever term of the sheet. And that's the beauty of those presets, is those start values are defined for unlaminated vinyl, thin laminates, thick laminates, etc. Okay, so that's once they're dialed in. And by the way, once you get them dialed into your given media product, they can be saved as presets under a new name. So we have the ability to define all that and then save under a new preset. So time and time again, we don't have to reinvent that wheel. Okay. All right. So I think I want to save a few minutes for questions and so forth, but I think that's kind of what I have for you. Bob, is there other stuff you'd like me to do here, since I sort of jumped in here on the fly?
No, I think you did a great job. Thanks for filling in, and Bobby, thanks for going through everything. I think that was a lot of great information. We kind of hit our time limit here, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Is there any concluding remarks, Bobby? Did you have anything you wanted to say at this point?
No, I think, hopefully everybody learned a few things. Hopefully we didn't go too fast. So you kind of got a double dip on creating the contour cut marks and everything on there. So maybe seeing, as you see, there's 3-4 different ways to do pretty much everything in Flexi. Everybody does it a little bit differently. Each person puts their own unique spin on it. And so tomorrow I'll go over, some more in-depth how to create maybe color charts, how to do spot color mapping, some of the text tools and some different things like that we've got available in Flexi.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I know I can't wait to see what you've got tomorrow. For a moment, let me just take this moment to tell you a little bit about IT Supplies. IT Supplies is here to support your needs for everything related to the perfect print. Our knowledgeable staff and tech support specialists are here to help you with your supplies and to support your business and keep you running. In addition, we're posting daily videos on our YouTube channel to help with many commonly asked questions. This webinar will also be posted on our YouTube channel within the coming days. So please, if you have any questions at all, please go ahead and reach out to your sales representative. And if you're not sure who your commercial sales representative is, feel free to call 1-800-771-9665 and ask for a commercial sales specialist. We're here to help your business succeed. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone. This concludes our second of our educational webinar series involving RIP companies, printer companies. We're going to keep going all month, so we hope you'll join us again tomorrow. As hinted here, we will have Bobby back, and we'll be going into a deep dive with Flexi, so I hope you'll join us. If you need links or anything, you can go to our website and click on e-learning at the bottom of the website, or you can visit our LinkedIn page for additional information. Or of course, give your sales rep a call. They're happy to help you. So thanks again to Bobby and Paul here for helping coordinate everything. I hope everyone's going to walk away more knowledgeable, and thank you to all the attendees. It's been great.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks so much for watching this. If you would like to see more of these videos, please go to our YouTube channel.